Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a preview. Not a review exactly, but a preview. It's a review of the current status of the Minotrauro. A few thoughts about this particular tank. It is the new line that is upcoming for the Italians. It's a TD line with a auto loader of special design or some such thing as what Wargaming calls it. I've talked about it on Coffee Talk on Sunday a couple times. Normally, I don't do hype videos. I don't even mess around with Common Test a whole lot. I have downloaded it a couple times. I happen to have downloaded it this time to kind of take a look at this beast because it's looking like a potential problem. It's the tank that destroyed the game. We've had multiple of those. Remember the IS-3A when it destroyed the game, and the Chrysler GF and all these others? Yes, I think this thing's going to be problematic to some extent. We'll take a look at it. I'll talk about why it is. The numbers that it currently has are not necessarily what it's going to come to the game with. Broad brush or first look at what I'm looking at with a 5-round auto loader, even though you have 8 seconds between shots, and we'll look at the numbers as they stand right now. Looks a little overpowered. And if I was just to make a suggestion off the cuff, from the hip kind of thing, I would take off 2 of the shells and give it 3 right off the bat. It's also got about a 20-second reload for the entire clip. It's very difficult to know when this thing is reloading, and even when it is, it's much like say a T-57 or a Kronwagen. It's going to be back in the fight, or an AMX. It's going to be back in the fight pretty quickly at Tier 10, within 22, 24 seconds or so, such that it will be hard to deal with, especially if it can keep everything forward. Let's take a look at the numbers here real quick as they stand currently. Caro 3 Minotrauro, so 530 Alpha, 255 Pen with the regular round, 345 with the heat round. Woo-wee! 24 seconds can be brought down to about 22. We'll take a look at what I've got on my setup here. Reload is in between shells 8 seconds. So for an auto loader, that's quite a long time. That is more like a cyclical gun, although 8 seconds for a 530 Alpha at Tier 10, that's pretty quick, right? So a little bit of trade-off there. Dispersion's pretty bad at 0.44. I played a few games in it. I would definitely say the derpiness of the gun is a little bit difficult to deal with, but you can do some things to mitigate that to some extent. But 0.44 is pretty bad. 2.3 seconds aiming time. It does have -10. And then we're going to double down on that with the whole armor and turret armor on the front being 300 with no real weak spots. This is a rough tank to deal with. I mean, it is heavily armored. It has a quarter turret, 1/3 turret, I guess. Traverse angles up to 90 degrees. I don't know if that's actually true. I think it's only 30 to the side or 60. We'll take a look at that. I'm not 100% sure. Does 36. It's not very fast, but it's fast enough. Low horsepower. Specific is very low, so it takes a while to get up and get going. Whole traverse is okay. The turret is slow, as most of the turret type TDs are, as a balancing factor, and it's got a 390 on the view range with 2100 hit points. So that's the numbers as they stand. Those can change. It is Common Test that I am playing on. I'm not a huge fan of Common Test in terms of working on balance. It's just people are playing with not on necessarily on their account. They have all kinds of extra funds and bonds. They'll load stuff out with a lot of gold, with all kinds of goodies on it. As you can see, I am running the bounty vents. I have a bounty IA and hardening. I just kind of chuck some stuff at it, things I thought might be good for this tank. The IA to kind of tame that 0.44 dispersion, the vents for overall goodness, and hardening because I figure I'm probably going to go out there and punch people in the face. I am running food, and I've got 25 of the heat shells. As we drive to where we're going to go here on Mountain Pass, and I'm going to show you a few bits of gameplay here and why I'm a little bit worried about this particular tank in terms of what it's going to do, especially in the hold down meta. I mean, if we think about this for just a second, we definitely have a hold down meta kind of thing going on. Some would call it an issue, some might not call it an issue, but this thing is going to do nothing but add to the hold down meta. -10 gun depression, extremely strong turret. The upper plate is also extremely strong. Frontally, it really has about as few weaknesses as any tank in the game does. I mean, it's kind of a monster. It has 530 alpha shells, albeit it takes 8 seconds between them to get them downrange, and it only has about a 22-second reload. I mean, it's just, it feels on paper overpowered. I don't want to make that call necessarily because those may not be the numbers at the end of the day. Could get nerfed, maybe not. We don't know. We'll find out. Also, these are not real gameplay situations on the common test. It's close-ish, but not really. The other thing, this is a complete sidebar. I just wanted to check this out. There are RU accounts on the common test. This has nothing to do with the Minotauro. We were told, at least in my opinion, led to believe that Wargaming had divested itself of the RU stuff because of a certain situation. Now, I'm not commenting on that. I have my own thoughts on that. I'm going to leave it at that. But the advertisement of that whole thing was that, you know, they were no longer involved with it. And I will say to a large extent this was a big PR move to make themselves look good. But now I'm seeing RU accounts on the common test. So clearly there's some kind of connection left here. Even though I believe, it seems like we were led to believe that they were divesting themselves of that and there would be no more connection. Although they never really said that, did they? They just talked a little bit about the money and they won't make any more money from there. I'm just throwing that out. It's very strange. It looks like the entire development is still within the 3 regions of RU, EU, and NA. Similar things are happening on each side. It may be that some things were in the works and we're just at the tail end of stuff that was already going, and that makes perfect sense for large companies. But I don't know, man. It's a little bit weird to me that really it seems like it's business as usual, and meanwhile we've collected some, you know, some good feelings by making some declarations. I'm just chucking that out there, guys. I don't know. All right, back to the tank itself. That's the hype part of the video. That's where I'm trying to get everybody all riled up. It could be much ado about nothing. Probably is. So I'm going to come down here. I know I've got all this armor. It's a pure tier 10 battle. We got a platoon of JPZs and a bunch of other hard hitters. And my intention here, I think this was the first battle, was just to drive it out to where it was going to take some hits. I wanted to cover up the lower plate, so I'm going to use these rocks up here. And I wanted to get up there and start playing punchy phase and see if it could do what I thought it probably should be able to do in terms of its armor. And this gets really interesting here because these JPZs look like they just want to be a bit of a problem. Now I'm going to have some aiming issues. This is a pretty high ping for me. I play with a much lower one, and my mouse settings on this client are goofy. So you're going to see a lot of spasticness, and it took me a while to kind of sort that out. See, I can't really get my aim going. I hit the rock. That's a bummer. There's that long reload, so when you're talking about an auto loader and how you're used to it being a bit faster, that's something you have to get used to. Top of the armor, it's no big deal. So I'm just going to kind of sit here. Look at these guys. I have a JPZ. There goes, this guy falls off. Doink. Look at that. I just bounced the heat round. Right off. Looks like he hit the armor right there. So just didn't have it. Bunch of angles there. Holy cow. And we sneak a shot into the bottom of the other JPZ. And look at him, he's just aiming it. Doink! He bounces. I'm in a little bit of trouble aiming. I get a couple shots in there, and now I'm on the reload, the 8-second reload between shells to get the other shell out. There we go. Okay, we bounce. And I'm going to look for a little bit better position here. There we go. And this is the 22-ish seconds of reload. So just kind of, as I'm talking, think about how the fight's going. No one's really pushing me, and we are just about back into this thing. So we'll look at him, see if we can get a shot. All right, he gets a chunk of me there, and I miss. We're going to try this again. We're going to definitely have a shot well before he gets another shot off. And he helps me out by backing up on that thing, which flat plates that already relatively weak upper casemate, and that helps me out. VZ actually sneaks a shot in right there, and I don't know if maybe he got into the lower... Oh, we got the hatch, maybe? No, that was a bounce. It's hard to see when you're fighting around and all this stuff right here. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure where he got me. Maybe in the hatch there. That might have been a pen, I'm not sure. So it's not completely invulnerable. You'll notice I've taken 2 hits. Obviously, a JPZ has a lot of pen. So the BZ's trying to do his thing. I'm going to get pushed and killed off here. We get the Batchat pen. We get 1 sneaky cheeky on that. I have 2 shells. But this is where the tank will struggle a little bit. When you get guys who are able to get in and around you, it's only myself and the E100 that's left here. And we have quite a few tanks, plus the JPZ up high. And the Batchat's making a good move to come around and start shooting me in the side right there. And even though I thumped him for 5, probably not, 481, a little bit of a low roll there, he still has 1,300 hit points, and I have 8 seconds to get the next shell out, plus I'm trying to deal with all this kind of movement stuff. There we go, we get 1 more on it. I don't think I get another shot on it. I'm waiting for the shell, but I just, not quite enough, and boom, I get killed by the M4 54, who has come around the corner with the rest of the buddies there, and it's just hard to keep your armor straightforward to everybody when you have fairly different angles coming at you there. So again, it's not completely invulnerable, but you'll notice not a particularly clever battle on my part. I just sort of went forward and hugged a rock and started face punching, and I came out of it with 2,666. But look at the bounce, 3,410 against some pretty high pen tanks who were struggling. This also happens a bit early on. People don't really know where to hit or where to aim for or how to handle it. It's a new tank, so when you get in another argument for the common test not being a great example of gameplay or further down the line balance is because people are learning the new tanks and such, much like they will when they get released initially. But that was some pretty brainless gameplay, and I got away with a bunch of bounce, a bunch of assist, and okay-ish damage. That's not a whole bunch for tier 10. I'm not lighting up any leaderboards anywhere with 2,666. But it was striking to me that I was able to sort of just stand in there against 2 JPZs, and I took 3 shots and only 1 of them pinned. you know, there could be some luck. Maybe they actually just didn't hit where they were aiming. They went off to the side, and I had a good angle on anybody with a decent amount of armor, and that angle would have bounced it. But I played a couple more battles, and I just found this tank to be this way. If you can keep stuff in front of you, keep people from shooting your lower plate, the sheer armor and firepower of it will let you be a bit of a mongoloid in terms of playing. Just, you know, Hulk smash kind of stuff. And I don't know, man, if that is really something we need in this game or more of, something that we need more of in this game. I can certainly see much better players than me being able to leverage this thing's capability and just being an absolute monster, especially in some positions, hold down positions, where you can't just really charge in there and get at them. These dudes are just going to sit and hold down spots, and think of the windows in a lot of the city maps, and just sit there and abuse people righteously with this thing. I don't know, man. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Just a quick preview. I'm not saying this is going to destroy the game or it's a huge problem. I have a bad feeling it is going to be a bit overpowered. I did not look at the 9 and the rest of them, so I'm not sure what they're going to do either. I was mostly just curious about this one because I'd seen the stats and heard a lot of the chatter. So we will have to see what happens with it at the end of the day, whether it comes out with those stats or less or more. I would be very surprised if it got any kind of buff. If the stats were going to go anywhere, I would say they'd be down. First blush, as I said at the beginning, I think I would cut off 2 of its shells, and that would be a pretty good start. You could probably leave all the armor and everything else and drop 2 of its shells, so it was a bit of a more sluggish firepower producer kind of thing, and more of just a stop because you're bouncing off the armor kind of assault tank. That's the way I kind of see it right now. But like I said, let me know what you think down in the comments down there, and it's on its way, man. It'll be here soon. That's all I've got for today. We will see ya. And what is up with the whole RU dudes on this common test thing? I don't know.